Hi, my name is Louise Jupp, Women and Drones Africa. I am delighted to welcome you to a series of Zoom chats with trailblazing women in the African drone industry. In this series, I'm asking them about why they got into the industry, how they got into the industry, any challenges they faced, opportunities they see for the future, and offering any advice on anybody who might be interested in getting into the industry. Today, I'm delighted to introduce you to Lebohang Lebogo from South Africa. Hello, Lebo.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's quite an honor to be here.
Cool, thank you. Can you just sort of perhaps introduce yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
As you earlier said, I'm Lebohang Lebogo. I grew up in a township west of Johannesburg called Kagiso. I work for the South African National Blood Services as a I'm a technical specialist basically, but I'm also the drone pilot.
Okay.
I recently became I think it's been 2 years since we started the whole drone project.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think as we chat, I'll briefly explain how I actually got into becoming the drone pilot. It's quite an interesting story to tell.
Okay, well, that is in fact, well, that's partly my next question was what really attracted you to the industry?
To be honest, I didn't know about the drone industry at all. I initially joined the organization in 2011 via an internship. So I was a medical technician. I worked in blood banks. I worked in the lab where we'd cross-match blood for patients that required blood. And at the time, I was training to become a pilot. So I was self-funding myself while I was working, which sometimes doesn't work because you can't do it part-time, but it's difficult to maintain the momentum. The whole stop and go thing doesn't really work when you're training to become a pilot and trying to get your private pilot license. So I then joined one of the senior managers in 2018, and he was part of the drone project, and he knew that my passion was flying because I'd often asked to leave to go to school to fly or to write exams. So they saw it fit to choose me to become their first drone pilot for their project.
Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
That's really, I'm just off, slightly different question. I mean, how do you see the similarities between manned aviation and unmanned aviation?
I mean, everything is basically the same in terms of radio calls and, where you fly, which airspace you're allowed to fly and all of that. But I think for me, it was a complete shock where I was controlling an aircraft with a controller rather than using a throttle with my own hands inside the cockpit. So it was hard actually to adjust to that, honestly. As I said, I had never been exposed to it. I suppose the only drone I saw was like your DJI Phantom 4s. Even then, I hadn't even flown one before. It was always from somebody else who owned it. So, I mean, yeah, it was interesting to be part of that journey at the time.
Okay. I mean, as you say, I mean, it's quite difficult when you're compared to sitting in an aircraft as well. You get the feel for what you're doing, but to stand on the ground and watch something away from you, it's quite a difficult
It is
to try and perceive what is happening.
It's facing you, and then your left becomes your right, or your right. So there was also quite like my brain was just like, okay, what's going on?
Exactly, that's it.
Yeah.
So you say in some ways that you hadn't heard of the industry, but what keeps you in it now that you're in the drone industry? What kind of keeps you there?
I think because our drone project is still ongoing, we are still waiting for approval from the civil aviation industry, which can be quite a long process. So I think still keeping the momentum, the fact we still want our license, our ROC. I'm part of a lot of drone networks. One of my instructors actually started a drone network where she included a lot of young young guys. I don't think it's specifically women, but it's just young guys in the drone space, and we interact, we share videos, we meet up, we fly together. So I suppose that's how I've managed to maintain the momentum with that.
Okay.
And also because
I
I
forgot.
mean, I feel like I'm still like the baby in the industry because I'm still so new in it and I'm still learning. So it's helpful to have people who are very well experienced who can, guide me.
Absolutely. And I mean, sometimes, as you say, when you're waiting for your company to be licensed, where do you fly? When can you fly? How can you keep your
Yeah.
skills going? So it's important to learn from other people. Hey.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I forgot to ask you, do you fly fixed wing or multi-rotor drones?
So our drone is actually both. So I had to train for both
Okay.
wing and multi-rotor.
Oh, you did both. Okay.
Yes,
Oh,
I
that's
did both.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Which one did you find easier?
Multi-rotor is easier. Fixed wing, oh my word, fixed wing is like, yeah, it's a skill. That is a proper skill to have.
Yeah. Yeah, at least with the multi-rotor, if you get stuck, you can let it hang while you think about
Yeah,
what you've got to do. But the fixed wing, it's moving all the time. Hey.
it's moving. And the tricks that you see that people do, like they stall it and then they pick it up again, like it's incredible to watch. I personally don't have the confidence to do that yet, but it's really nice to watch.
Yeah, no, I've seen videos of the aircraft being used by the blood service, and it looks really quite impressive, especially when it transfers from vertical to horizontal
Yes,
flight. I mean, it's such a lovely looking aircraft.
no,
Um,
it really is.
yeah. Um, is there anyone? I mean, has anybody, since you've been in the industry in particular? Is there anybody in particular that inspires you in this industry?
Um, I think because I haven't been exposed to that many people, other than Kim James. Kim James, a few months ago, we had a Zoom chat, and just from there, her energy, we just clicked. She's just a ball of energy. So I think I
Mm,
particularly enjoy her, and she's eager to give information. She's eager to, because she's been in the industry for a while. So I think
mm.
I get a bit of advice and inspiration from her specifically as well.
Okay. Yeah, no, she's a great ambassador for the industry. I love it.
Yeah.
Um, um, so, I mean, so you're obviously doing, you are in the industry. What other roles have you seen to date in that you've seen women playing an active role in the industry? What have you seen so far?
I think one thing in particular that I am passionate about that I'm seeing, as I've mentioned, my previous instructor, she also opened her own company, and the fact that she focuses on young people, I think it's important, especially young people in our communities, in the townships. I still think they're not exposed to things like drones. So, I mean, something like going and doing a drone demonstration at a school, for instance, it's something I feel like I could be passionate about and would love to be a part of. So I would really like to start at home and train the young ones, because you'll fly your drone out on the street and people will be fascinated and they won't even know what it is. Um,
Yeah.
so the exposure would be pretty awesome.
No, I agree. It'd be nice to just show people what this thing is and what it can do, and
Yeah,
sometimes break past that point where it's just to spy on you or it's to take pictures. It would
right.
be it's really important to get a bigger message out about the value of drones to everybody.
No, for sure. And I mean, with my experience, because I'd never been exposed to it, it would have helped then had I had a little bit of knowledge. I think the knowledge came from the manned aviation, so I blended in a bit easier. But if I had known,
Mm.
more about it, I suppose it would be much different.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Um, Do you see, what sort of opportunities do you see for women in the future in the drone industry? What do you think is a particular area that they could move into, or just something in general? What do you think's out there?
Nothing in particular. I just think the drone space is still is still dominated by men. So we do need more women in the industry. I mean, we have a select few, or a few that I know. You could tell me if anything like that has changed. You probably know more than I do, but I genuinely feel like the industry still needs a lot more of women.
No, I would agree. I mean, when you go to conferences, there's actually not too. It's quite. When I remember last year, there are quite a few women that do turn up at the conferences, pilots and company-related, roles that they're playing and all sorts. So there's more than I would have thought, I must say. But we are still thin on the ground, and I mean, it's like manned aviation. There's not really that many of us.
Yeah.
So I think there are plenty of opportunities beyond being a pilot. There's the data, how to turn the data into something useful. From your side, the sort of medical involvement. There's more opportunity. I think it's easy to fixate on the drone and not think about the bigger picture.
About the holistic,
Yeah.
So I mean, something like mapping, something that I'd never, ever been exposed to, which was also at the time a bit of a challenge. So I think that side of the industry still needs to be, explored as well. I mean, creating the software, just everything.
I agree. I mean, we need to, I mean, that's the biggest thing that comes out of drones. It's the data. So how can you use that data? How can you turn it into something that's useful to somebody? How can you distribute the data? There are various avenues and opportunities from that perspective alone. And, deliveries, which is effectively what the blood service is doing. Hey, I mean, what's the scope from within that? At what point can we collect things? And I would love the idea of perhaps finding ways of getting produce out of smaller areas to people who want it. Sort of finding a way of connecting people with the market through the use of drones and deliveries and things like. There's so many millions of opportunities, I think, but I would just like to see more women involved in it, because I think they have a huge role to play.
No, definitely agree.
Going back sort of in your own sort of experience and your own journey in the industry, did you find any particular challenges? Was there something that stands out for you that was either difficult and obviously you overcame, but is there something that stands out for you as a challenge that you encountered?
For me, I think the whole idea of training to become a drone pilot was a challenge for me. Especially the fixed wing. As I said, I had to do both. The fixed wing took me quite a few weeks before I went for my DFE test. But I mean, I think practice makes perfect. That's the only way to better yourself. So I think that stands out for me, that because I'd never been exposed and it was completely new to me. That was my biggest challenge.
Okay. Yeah. I've tried flying a fixed wing on a simulator, and it is different.
It's very different. Very different.
Yeah, I'm glad it was a simulator. That's the amount of times I can take off and turn around in circles, but landing was always a little bit of a
landing. I think landing is the taking off isn't so bad, and all of that. The landing part, it's quite tricky.
That's it. What do you think about the drone scene for women in Africa? Are you aware of what's going on the continent? What do you think? What do you think about it in that regard?
I think a lot of companies, especially drone companies now, are being intentional about hiring women. If you look at Swoop Arrow, for instance, It's another drone company from Australia. They in Mozambique, Rwanda, I think a few African countries that side. And the stories that we hear, and specifically because Africa is so it floods. So if rainy seasons, it often floods, and often they need to use the drones to transfer whatever it is or deliver whatever it is that they need to. So I think what I can appreciate about companies, including South African National Blood Services, they've been intentional with regards to hiring women. I still think we can do a bit more better. That's the plan. Don't specifically know a lot of women in Africa that are occupying the space other than the ones I know within Southern Africa. Yeah, but I think I just commend companies that are being active in, intentional about hiring women.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It does seem to be like that, and there does seem to be things happening across the continent, and you see women that are photographed, commented on as actually sort of leading and leading these opportunities. So yeah, it is good, and I hope it can. I really want to see this sort of thing continue. That it's not just for the beginning; it's a continuous momentum that keeps going to make sure that we bring in interest more girls and get more women involved in one form or another. So I think it's absolutely critical.
Definitely.
Yeah. What if someone came to you today and said, I'm looking at this, but I really don't know, what sort of advice would you give someone who might be interested in becoming a part of the drone industry, especially a woman?
I think from my experience, do your research. Make sure you find credible training facilities because, well, for me, fortunately, the company found everything, did everything for me. I just went and trained. But do your research, figure out what it is that you want to do specifically. Because I think what I've noticed recently is that we have a lot of pilots who've done their their PPLs, and they're now drifting towards the drone industry. I don't know, maybe because the industry now is opening up different types of opportunities, and manned aviation currently, because of the pandemic, has taken a hard hit, a hectic hit. Yeah, so I'll just say do your research, and if it's something that you love, definitely go for it. Definitely pursue it.
Okay, thank you. Very sound advice. It's a common thread, actually. A couple of people have said, make sure you look into this properly and do your research. So yeah, it's a common thread. No, well, that's cool. Thank you very much. Have you got anything else that springs to mind that you would like to mention at this time?
No, I think we've covered everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
When do you think you might be able to get operational? Have you got a sort of timeline for that? Could it be this year coming?
Oh my gosh, that is the $1 million question. I can't even give you an answer.
Okay.
So we're playing the waiting game basically right now.
Okay.
I think blood delivery is quite complex because now you need to determine whether it's dangerous goods or not. Because the blood that we transport is tested, so it's not infectious. So it's there's a fine line there where we either apply completely dangerous goods route. So that's where we're at now. So, but the Civil Aviation Authority has been very helpful in that regard. They even though it's taking long, but they've been assisting.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. You just made me think. Have you flown BVLOS, beyond visual line of sight?
Yes, I have.
What was that like?
Well, I mean, the training, our vehicle is BVLOS. So, I mean, it's pretty much the same, especially because our vehicle is autonomous, so there's not much that you do anyway.
Okay.
You just basically monitor it on the system and make sure that
Hmm.
there's a need, you can still take control of it. But it's
Okay.
pretty much the same. It's just that you can't see it.
Is there a bit of a, oh, as it goes, as it disappears? Or are you
No, not
completely trusting
really.
in the system?
You
Okay.
completely just trust the system.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously I haven't done anything like that, and I'm just curious, what would it be like to fly BVLOS?
No,
But yes, you're dealing with different systems.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Okay, cool. Okay, well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed chatting to you, and thank you for your advice in particular. I think that's very helpful, especially for someone who's looking to get into the industry. If someone's inspired by your story or wants to contact you, how might they do so? What would be the best way?
LinkedIn is the best way. Lebohang Lebogo on LinkedIn. So
Okay.
yeah.
Great. Okay, I'll add that to the information. But thank you very much for your time, and yeah, keep well and keep safe and fly safe.
Definitely keep safe, please, please, please.